Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Huck. Today I am doing my worst and most disappointing reads of 2018. Most of these are disappointing reads, not necessarily that they are terrible books, but they just like didn't reach my expectations or I was disappointed for some other reason. But some of these I just do think are they're just not good books, and that's just my opinion. So in this video I may be insulting some favorite books, so just, you know, proceed with caution, I guess. Just go in knowing that. And I'm not gonna spend too much time on any of these books because if I really got into why I didn't like them, this would just turn into like hours long me ranting about these books. So I'm gonna go through them relatively quickly. And also these are in no particular order. I just have a pile of books in front of me and I'm gonna be pulling from them. So the first one that I want to talk about is The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert. And this one I was really looking forward to because I love fairy tales. I love dark fairy tales. Like, I was really on board for that. It sounded really cool with like these dark, creepy fairy tales coming to life. Also, like, it has a beautiful cover, and like maybe that's not a reason to have high expectations for a book, but like that's how it works. It has a beautiful cover. I expect it to be a good book. There's another one in here that the same thing happened to me. Really what bothered me is that it didn't live up to its potential. It had so much potential, so much going for it, and it just could not deliver. The pacing was really weird. It was so slow and so boring for so long, and then at the very end it just rushed through the ending and wrapped it up so fast. And the ending was like one of the only parts that was actually interesting because we finally got to the magic. Like, most of this book doesn't have any like fantastical or magical elements to it, and they're all just at the very end, and that's the part that the book sped through. I also really didn't like the writing. It was trying very hard to be like whimsical, and it just was not pulling it off, and it ended up feeling very disjointed in the writing. If you want more of my thoughts on this book, I actually did a full review of it that I will link below, so that has more elaborated points about why I did not like this book. The next two books that I have were both from my Science Fiction Through the Decades challenge, and I really did not like these, but I made myself read them because I was doing this challenge. The first one is The Day of the Triffids by John Wyndham, and this is one that, like, I don't have any specific complaints about it. It was just boring. And this is a pretty short book. It's like not even 200 pages. It took me 2 months to read this because I just so much didn't care what was happening, and I had to drag myself through this. I really would have DNF'd this if it had not been part of that challenge that I was doing. And the other book from this challenge that I really didn't like was Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert A. Heinlein. And this book, I think that it is very much of its time. It was written in the 60s, and you can very much tell from the writing style, from the way the characters talk, from the, you know, sexist and racist things that they say. There was no element of this book that I enjoyed. It's very much a book of its time, and it just did not sit well with me as a person of this time. Then we have Ka Dar Oakley in The Ruin of Ymir. Ymir? YMR. I don't know. I never figured out how to say that word. But this is by John Crowley, and this is another book that I bought because it has an absolutely beautiful cover. I adore this cover so much. It's like one of my favorite covers ever. And so it has a beautiful cover, so I expected it to be a good book, which we've established this is not a great way of picking books, but this is apparently what my mind thinks is a good way of picking books. Is like, it has a pretty cover, it's obviously going to be a good book. And that didn't pan out. This is one that I don't know if it's necessarily that it's a bad book, but it was really not the book for me. And it was one that I probably should have DNF'd, but I didn't. And then I was like angry that I kept reading it, so I started to like resent the book. And it just like it was just a mess, you know? So it's one that, as I said, I don't know if it's actually a bad book, but it really was not for me. And at this point, I just have a lot of like resentment about this book because I forced me to finish reading it, which is ridiculous. And now we have one that's probably going to be controversial, which is The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. And this is one that is very well loved on BookTube among fantasy readers, and people just like extol its virtues and say how incredible the writing is and how beautiful it is. And when I was reading this, the writing is not that great. Like, it's nothing special. I don't know why people like say the writing is so incredible. It's very just like, it's not bad, it's fine, it's not amazing either. Like, I don't know, I just had overly high expectations for like how great this writing was going to be. But this one I think was it was so boring. I just didn't care about anything that happened. Not that much happened in this very chunky book, and it's one that it's not because it's slow paced, it's just because not a lot was happening. And the main character, Kvothe, like, I get that he's supposed to be an unlikable main character, and I love a good unlikable main character, but that's the thing, he's not a good unlikable main character. He wasn't done well as a unlikable main character. He's just annoying. He's just arrogant and annoying, and he's too good at everything. While I was reading this, I just really felt that I was like, this is just like a wish fulfillment character for one of those guys who is like, I'm so brilliant, why doesn't everybody just like recognize my genius? And then he wrote this book as a wish fulfillment for himself of being this person who is like brilliant and perfect at everything. That's what it felt like, and it was so annoying. And in this book also, there are pretty much no other characters. Like, there are other characters, but we don't get to know any of them enough for them to like be actual characters. So you're pretty much just left with only Kvothe, and if you don't like him, it's just a terrible experience, which this was. And the love interest in this book, I could not stand. She was such a shallow character. Not that she was like a shallow person, she was just a two-dimensional character. She wasn't well written. She was so flat and so boring and pointless, and I don't understand why either of them were interested in the other, although they were both very two-dimensional characters. So maybe they, maybe they deserve each other. I don't know. It just was, I was reviewing the notes that I had on this book, and one of my notes actually says, everyone is just so damn impressed with him, and it just feels like, don't hate me because I'm beautiful. That's his mantra for the whole book, is just don't hate me because I'm beautiful. Except it's don't hate me because I'm a genius and perfect at everything, and everything just magically works out for me for no reason, for just like inexplicable reasons. I don't understand why people are so obsessed with him, why people are so charmed by him. Like, it doesn't make sense. If you're going to have those characteristics, you have to have like explanation or reasoning, or like show me why it is the way it is, and none of that happened, and it was just so annoying. And yet again, for some reason, I made myself read this whole thing, and now I'm resentful about it. The next book I have is very solidly in the like disappointing category, because I had very high expectations and a lot of excitement going into this one, which is Sisters of the Winterwood by Rena Rossner. I was so excited about this one because it is a fairy tale retelling of the Goblin Market with Jewish characters, and I was so excited to find a fantasy book with Jewish rep and own voice as Jewish rep. It just like seemed like it was going to be the perfect thing, and it just really wasn't. And it wasn't necessarily because this book is terrible. I don't think it's a terrible book, but it really didn't meet my expectations, and that may have been somewhat my fault because I had very high expectations for it. I was very excited about this, but it really did not meet them. And part of it is because I think that the writing and the story was very mediocre, but then there were some things about the way that the Jewish characters were depicted or characterized that really bothered me, and I felt so blindsided by it. And they were relatively subtle things, but subtle things still matter, and it just really tainted my reading experience of this book. And this is one that I promised to review, and I do intend to still make one, so I don't have one yet that I can link below, but I will be making a review about this, about why this was such a disappointing read to me. And last up, we have another very disappointing one because I had high expectations expectations, which is Ship of Destiny by Robin Hobb. This is the third and final book in the Live Ship Traders trilogy, and this book, I had such high expectations going into this because the second book in this series was so good, and then this really did not meet those expectations, and by the end of it I hated the ending, and I'm real mad about the way it ended. I'm very mad about how this book ended, how this series ended, and I have a review that I have filmed for this. I have not posted it yet, but that is forthcoming. It is definitely coming. It is going to be a bit of a rant review. Robin Hobb is an author that I do enjoy. I have kind of mixed experiences with her because some of her books I like and some of them I don't, but overall I think that she is a really good author. I really enjoy her writing, and her world building is so great, and her character development can be really good when she does it right. And as I said, the second one was just so great, and this third one just really missed the mark for me. And finally, I just want to do some honorable mentions of some of the books that I DNF'd this year. So these ones I'm really not gonna get into because like I didn't even finish them, but I'm just gonna, you know, honorable mentions of the ones that were DNF'd. The first one that I have is Crown Duel by Sherwood Smith. Then the rest of these are audiobooks. The first one is Delirium by Lauren Oliver. I got part of the way in, maybe about halfway in, and realized I was like, there's no plot. Then I have the novella The Slow Regard of Silent Things by Patrick Rothfuss. Then I have Paper Valentine by Brenda Jovanoff. And finally we have Me Before You by Jojo Moyes. And I got through probably like 90% of the book. Like I listened to a lot of it, and then that last like 10% I just could not do it. I didn't care about the romance that was happening, which was like, that's the entire plot. Like, this is a romance book, and if you don't care about the romance, then like, what are you doing? So those are all of my worst books and most disappointing books of the year. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, bye.